Probably put your apple in first. Don't be a dummy like me.
Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and today I'm going to teach you the basics of how to start a vinegar eel culture. I honestly think this is the easiest live food of all the live foods to cultivate and keep, and one of the best for very, very small fish fry. So, with that being said, let's go downstairs into one of the fish rooms and go through the tutorial.
Okay guys, what we're going to do is we're going to create ourselves a vinegar eel culture. English is hard. What we need: some apple cider vinegar. I've already created one, and I just want to show you how I do it. Water. Get this about room temperature. It can be out of the tap. A funnel, just to make pouring easier. You can use like anything you get at a grocery store. Actually, these are an automotive funnel. You can see it's got this long taper. I like these just because it makes it really easy. Out of these glass bottles I like to use, you can see how far down it gets. Makes it nice and easy just for pouring. And then finally, you'll want a bottle. I prefer glass. It's just a little easier. You can get these wine-style bottles here off of Amazon. I'll have a link down in the description for you, just to the exact ones I used. They're super simple. They make harvesting easy later on because of this tapered neck that's here. And I'll show you that in just a sec. And then you need a food source. I'm just using a Fuji apple. You can use basically any apple you want, whatever's cheapest. And you'll see you can have it in little chunks like this, or slivers, you know, kind of chunked up into sticks. Because these have a pretty fine neck, I chunk them into sticks, just so it makes it easier to get them into the bottle. So when we're starting a culture, we'll need a starter culture. You can get some of these online. I think I've seen them on Dan's Fish before, and there's some of the fish fan that do these. I actually might start doing these. Just as a kind of favor to people. This is my old culture, and as you see, I'm going to bring this up close. You can see how it's kind of a little fuzzy in here on the old apple that's in here. That's when you know it's time to take your culture, split it into new cultures, and clean this bottle out and start it fresh. So, we need to dechlorinate our water. For that, I'm just going to use a little shot of Fritz Complete. Nice and simple. Just a little zap in there. We'll get this sweet rainbow steel spoon of mine. Stir it up. Make sure that the water is nice and dechlorinated. Must be dechlorinated. The chlorine will kill the vinegar eels. They're a teeny, teeny, tiny creature. They do not like chlorine. Then you need roughly 1/8 of an apple. So I'm going to grab a bunch of sticks from my pile over here off camera and just show you about what I'm putting in. You could do up to 1/4 of an apple for something this size, but you can just see about how much I'm looking at in these fine sticks. We're just going to start dropping them into the bottle here. This acts as a food source for the vinegar eels. And because we're putting a bunch of vinegar in here, speaking of, they really don't mold. They keep pretty cleanly. So we want to do equal parts water and apple cider vinegar. Make sure you do the apples first. Otherwise, it can be really hard to get them in later. This particular funnel is kind of interesting. It needs a good amount of airflow to do its fast pour. So there you go. You can see about how much, if I zip this back, you can see we're about halfway up. Probably actually need just a touch more. You don't have to be perfect, but try to get as close to 50-50 as you can. There we go. Perfect. We'll cap our vinegar. We'll get that off screen. Water. Nice and simple. Just going to pour some water in. I'm going to go until I get to the start of the neck. That should be about 50%. Right there, basically. Whoop. A little bit more than I want, but that's okay. Get that out of the way. You can just pour excess off. That's fine. And then from here, you would take like a pipette if you have an existing culture, or if you have a little starter culture, it'll come in like a small vial or something, and you'd pour that amount in. I'm going to take my pipette. You can see this is about 3 milliliters worth. And I don't know if you guys can see those on camera. I hope you can. I can see them. We just pour our starter culture in here. And it literally only takes that little and then you give them about a month, and you'll have tons of them in here, and the apples will sink down to the bottom. They won't float for very long. But that's how you create a vinegar eel culture. Now, once we're done with this, you want to leave some room up in the neck of the bottle. I'll bring the bottle forward a little bit. You want some room up here, like this is even a little too much. So I'll be pulling some of this off in order to make sure that we can harvest from this really easily. So once we're done with that, what we're going to do is take a little bit of filter floss, just like this. You could also use a coffee filter over the top if you want to. I tend to prefer the filter floss. And let me move the camera just a touch here. It'll be shaky for a second. Sorry about that. You're just going to push this in to cap. And you're done. Now, if this was lower in the neck, you could get the filter floss basically all the way down to here, right? And then you would take a pipette when you're ready to harvest, and you would fill this with fresh dechlorinated water, like this over here. And what will happen is, because this is porous enough, the air can get through but keep all the other stuff out, the vinegar eels will move through the filter floss, and come up to the top where it's just clear water, and then you just suck up all this nice clean water, and you can feed it to your fish. The alternative way is to take a coffee filter, like this, and you would just pour, you say like, let's put our coffee filter in here in this funnel, then you would pour your live culture in here, and all the vinegar eels will be in the filter, but the fluid will go through. And then you would take your coffee filter full of vinegar eels, give it a really light rinse in some clean dechlorinated water, and then you have lots of food to feed your babies. Now, I personally prefer the method of taking a little bit of filter floss, plugging the top, and then raising the top here. So like, let's say you did this only to the bottom here and you filled this with nice fresh water, it would make harvesting really easy. So if you want to do that method, don't overfill like I did. I just want to do this as a demonstration. Get it to where that you stop before your culture or whatever, right down here, put your culture in so that the bottom of the neck is your top line, and then you can get the filter floss down about here, and you'll have room for fresh water atop of it. That's it, guys. That's how you make a vinegar eel culture. This can stay in light, out of light. Just keep it room temperature. It is a little stinky, but this helps block a lot of it, especially with these fine neck bottles. The vinegar eels tend to stay toward the top surfaces because that's where the oxygen is most rich and where they can get air. So it's easy to harvest them with that little trick, with just this filter floss here and a pipette. You can keep them in wider mouth bottles like this here. This is like a Voss water bottle. I just prefer these long tapered necks because they're easy to harvest out of. And like I said, this exact bottle that I'm using will be down in the description. And then it's simple. This is probably the best fry food out there as far as ease of keeping. So we'll go back to my face and I'll explain a little bit more about why vinegar eels are such an awesome food.
Well, there you go, guys. As you can see, it's extremely easy to put together a culture for vinegar eels. And maintaining a culture and harvesting them is also very easy. I was able to explain it in just a few seconds. So really simple food. In the description box below, like I mentioned, the exact bottles I'm using, if you want to use those, will be there. They're cheap. They're easy to get on Amazon, shipped right to your door. You get like 12 of them for almost nothing, which is really nice. You can start with one culture, slowly split it until you have plenty of them going at a time. That way you have some that are maturing, while you also have mature cultures ready. It's just really handy. Let me explain why I love vinegar eels so much. Now, normally they sit in this really acidic, vinegary culture. However, those vinegar eels, when you put them in fresh water, will live for a few days, and they stay up in the water column. So for those of us who raise rainbows or similar fish that are going to stay up toward the top of the water and aren't going to dive down for food, it's a perfect live food because they'll stay up in that water column up real high because they want to be up near the surface all the time. And all your baby fish can zip through and eat them and have a live food source. Is it as nutritious as like baby brine shrimp? No. Is it still a pretty good food source? Definitely. It's a live protein that's going to be great for your fish. And because it comes from such very different water, that super acidic water, you basically don't ever have to worry about pathogens in any way, shape, or form. Like blackworms, occasionally you can get these weird parasite issues that happen with fish. That's not going to happen with a vinegar eel. Another big bonus there. Second, they take no work. I've had a culture going for a year. One of the bigger bottle that I have, not that small one that I showed you on camera, it's been going for a year. I haven't touched it. It's had some evaporation happen. I haven't changed the food out of it. And the culture is super thriving. I just set it up on one of my bookshelves where I keep all my spare supplies, the one that's by the 90-gallon right now. It stays out of direct sunlight, but you can have it in sunlight. I prefer not to. It's just less likely to get anything growing in the solution, which that solution prevents the apple from really rotting too much. So you're not going to deal with a lot of mold unless you go way too long. If you go a year plus, you might see some stuff. But if you go, 3 months and then you harvest a bunch out of it, and what you have left, you split that culture into 2 new cultures and you clean that bottle out and get it ready for the next new culture or something like that, or you save enough to start another new culture, so you have 3 new cultures going, and something like that, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And the last thing is just that, again, harvesting was super simple. There's kind of 2 ways to do it. It's not super messy. You don't require like a big thing like you would for, say, scuds or Daphnia, any of the worms. It's just easy. It's like our friend Easy Green hiding over here. Easy food. Pour it through a coffee filter. The worms are what's left. The eels rather are what's left over. Go take that over into a little like container of fresh water that you've dechlorinated. Rinse it out. Feed. Done. Easy. And even then, you don't even need to dechlorinate the water. You could run them under the tap to rinse them and make sure that there's no vinegar left in that coffee filter. And then take that coffee filter and like put it in a small container of water to like get the eels off of the coffee filter, pull the filter out, and then just pour that dechlorinated water into your tank. And you've just got this nice, rich culture of vinegar eels that are going to stay up in the water column. They're going to be available. Your fish are going to be able to hunt them down. Baby fish can get them because they're so tiny. I mean, they're super tiny. Rainbow fry can eat them right away. The smallest rainbow fry can eat that live food right away. It's so small. And it's funny. It's so hard to see on camera, but if you take your culture and you hold it up to a light, you're going to see like it looks almost cloudy, and that's just all the eels in it. Because because of how acidic it is, the solution doesn't really get cloudy. That's all the little teeny tiny microorganisms. And I mean, they're not truly microscopic, but they're very, very small, very hard for the human eye to perceive. But fish eyes don't care. They see those things all day long, and those are tasty, tasty snacks. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know down below, like, do you want to start culturing vinegar eels? Are you having trouble finding them? Because I think I've got enough left in my culture. I might split some in the future and maybe sell them on Get Gills or something like that for people that want to start their own vinegar eel cultures. I know some other members of the Fish Fam, and I think there's somebody on Get Gills that might already sell them. Try them out, seriously. They're super easy. They're very, very cost efficient. It costs you so little. You just buy some glass bottles and a little bit of filter floss that you would probably normally have anyway, an apple and some apple cider vinegar. You're done. It's super, super easy. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome. That was my elbow. Yeah.